Welcome to the Preliminary Cost Estimating Tool Training Series. In this segment, we'll be taking a look at the overhead sign structure section. Okay, so let's take a look at the overhead sign structures. If you want to know how we got to this point, you can check out our previous videos, starting with general overview, sections A and B, all the way down through the utilities training segments. So let's change this drop down to yes to open up the overhead sign structure stuff. You'll see we have new overhead sign structures and removal of existing overhead sign structures. So we can select a roadway from our drop down, and when you do that, you see it comes up with a span. We'll select a single span for a structure type so that it goes the whole span, and this is taking the maximum width of your roadway section that's entered up above. I'll show you where all this stuff comes from here real quick. So your roadway drop down comes from the roadways you input in the pavement section, and then the widths will come from the maximum width that you input for those roadways. So in this case, we have 76 feet for NY 123, and then it's going to add 16 feet to that to make sure, if you have guide rail or stay outside of the deflection distance of the guide rail. So it's giving you enough space to do that. I'm going to put in the number of sign panels. If I remember correctly, it's going to calculate each sign as 100 square feet to come up with a quantity for that. We also have this override span. Let's say maybe you're not at the widest point of the road and you know what your span should be. It might be less than that. You might want to go a little further for some reason. You can put in override span. We'll leave the default for this example. And then if you would like, you can hit the plus button to add another overhead sign structure, or the X button to delete one. Let's check out the remove existing overhead sign structures. Let's say we are going to remove one, a single span, and we'll just say quantity of 1. And that's all there is to it. User-defined non-itemized costs. If you have a specific scope of work that you've maybe calculated off to the side, you can put that in here. And it will subtotal down here in the overhead sign structures lump sum subtotal. Now let's take a look at the overhead sign structure worksheet. So you can see structure type, span, everything was brought over from the cover sheet here. Gives you items for structure, foundation, anchor bolts, and sign panels. It gives you the option to override these automatically determined item numbers as well as their quantities. You can see for removal of existing overhead sign structures, have our quantity of 1 here. You can override that. Has item numbers for single span, multi-span, and cantilever, which will populate here. You can override those as well if you wish. And then user-defined items and quantities down here. You can put in any item number you'd like. For example, 20302. And it will get added to your item list down below. Your overhead sign structure item list will sum all of your quantities together for each item number. Grab a unit price and give you an overhead sign structure's itemized total down at the bottom here. And then if we go back to the data entry tab, you can see that our subtotal comes in right there to give you the overhead sign structure's total. And that concludes the overhead sign structure segment of the Preliminary Cost Estimating Tool training series. For additional preliminary cost estimating tool training, be sure to check out our other videos. Thanks for watching.